There is no rebooting that story right now.
So you don't think it would ever get redone?
No, I don't. And I don't think it's a good idea at all. Okay. Nobody should do that.
You know what? He said what he said. Sometime around She's All That's 20th anniversary. It was about a year and a half later, news broke that Mark Waters of Vampire Academy would direct, and Addison Rae of The Kid Leroys, Addison Rae, would star in a gender-bent reimagining He's All That. Oh, the duality of man. For variety's sake, I'll occasionally refer to She's All That as Sat and He's All That as Hat. Reportedly, this reboot has been in the works for some time, so perhaps Matthew Lillard was being sarcastic because he was already set to appear in it. I, however, have chosen to believe he meant what he said, which isn't to say I blame him for showing up. You do it too for a check. If you're curious, Freddie Prinze Jr. was also asked about a potential remake, and true to his word, did not participate.
I wouldn't want to be in it, but it would be fun to kind of see what other people's take would be.
I have to wonder though, if he had agreed to take part, would he and Rachel Lee Cook have reprised their roles as Zach and Lainey, parents of Paget? I ask because Rachel does play Paget's mom, but her name is Anna Sawyer, apparently a mere doppelganger of Lainey Boggs, who I assume does exist in their same universe. My belief that She's and He's All That share continuity is based on the implication that they feature the same high school.
Right about now, we're gonna do that dance I taught you, and I know you've been practicing. Show me now! Turns out this year's dance presentation is now going to be a dance competition. We have some weird-ass traditions at this school.
Except they don't. One is Harrison High and the other is Cali High, both homes of the earthquakes.
Yeah, earthquakes. Spring break is officially over. Only 2 months left at Harrison High till summer vacation.
Attention, Cali High earthquakes. This is Principal Bosch announcing this year's prom theme.
I feel like they could have gone about paying homage in a less confusing manner. I know one thing for sure. That's not Cali High. That's Beacon Hills. Anyway, it's been a while since I've uploaded in general, but especially since I've uploaded a video with the G word in its title. Longtime viewers of my garbage movie series might have noticed that I kinda stopped producing it. The last time I did was about a year ago, but that video wasn't exactly true to form, and neither will this one be. I hope to better express my reasons for abandoning the old format someday, but for now, consider this, much like He's All That, a remake boot imagining. Rest assured, I'm still a hater. A better hater than I used to be, and in order to properly convey why I hate He's All That enough to resurrect the movie dumpster, we must look back in time at Ovid's Metamorphoses, which originated the tale of a master sculptor called Pygmalion. The gist is that Mr. Pygmalion hates women, like big time. He would be in the comments section of my Black Widow video. I shouldn't have said that. And who wouldn't be driven to misogyny living in ancient Cyprus? The place was running rampant with hoe bags. The guy's only option besides taking the black pill is praying to the goddess Venus that she bring to life his sculpture of the ideal virginal wifey. She does.
A real girl, a hot girl, a really hot girl, a brand new, really hot, real doll.
That's where the first version ends, and I can't say I find it to possess a moral. At least not one I approve of. I mean, Pygmalion and his creation are wed. They conceive. If we squeeze a takeaway out of that, it's that sexism is totally justified. Men are better than women. They provide for us and we must obey them because they are our masters. The Ivory Maid doesn't even have a name originally, but through adaptation she came to be known as Galatea. Most notably in the 1871 play Pygmalion and Galatea, which might have served as inspiration for George Bernard Shaw's 1913 play Pygmalion. Perhaps you've heard of it, but if you haven't, its plot might sound familiar. Eliza Doolittle, Cockney flower girl, takes speech lessons from phonetics professor Henry Higgins, who's bet that he can make a lady out of her.
I'll take it. I'll make a duchess of this draggle-tailed gutter snipe.
Yes, it appears the beloved musical My Fair Lady was based on Pygmalion. Well, it doesn't appear that it was. It was, and it's been well documented, but I must reiterate to you now that their narratives share all but endings. George was a complicated guy, and I can't say I endorse everything he stood for, but I can say I appreciate Pygmalion's feminist, authorial intent. It was truly ahead of its time, hence why some audiences and critics didn't take well to its ending, in which Eliza rightfully emancipated herself from the influence of Henry. Shaw was so defensive of this conclusion that he wrote an entire postscript essay titled What Happened Afterwards, which essentially detailed all of the many reasons why his main characters were incompatible. Full disclosure, there are Freudian bits in there about Professor Higgins being too close to his mother for comfort, but for the most part, Shaw's hang-up is the power imbalance. His essay concludes with Galatea never does quite like Pygmalion. His relation to her is too godlike to be altogether agreeable. You won't hear a counter-argument coming from me. The thing about Henry, if you're unaware or have forgotten, is that in classic Pygmalion fashion, he's a raging misogynist, an unchanging one at that. Take a shot every time he does a sexism or a classism while you're at it, and enjoy death by alcohol poisoning. My premature condolences to your loved ones.
You disgrace to the noble architecture of these columns. You incarnate insult to the English language. She's so deliciously low, so horribly dirty. That a woman in your life, and you're plunging in a knife. They're nothing but exasperating, irritating, vacillating, calculating, agitating, maddening, and infuriating hags. Why is thinking something women never do? And why is logic never even tried? Straightening up their hair is all they ever do. You impudent hussy. There's not an idea in your head or a word in your mouth that I haven't put there.
He's nothing short of terrible, but sometimes fictional characters are meant to be terrible. Indeed, his sexism and classism is the point of him. He can't have truly made a woman until Eliza's outgrown him.
And there still will be rain on that plain down in Spain. Even that will remain without you.
You know, I've never seen or listened to any version of the Phantom of the Opera, but I gather there's a comparison to be drawn between these doomed romances. Deep down, you're supposed to ship the Phantom with that woman, but you're also supposed to know better. To bring up something I actually do know and love, I think the same could be said about Jenna and Dr. Pomander from Waitress. Of course I want them to ditch their spouses and run away together, but no matter how many times I rewatch it, they never do. And that's the idea. It's a sweet kind of torture. A delectable agony. Who knows why those two productions were the first to come to mind, but take any well-made romantic media in which the leads don't end up together, for example. I'd put money on like half of your first thoughts being La La Land. So what if somebody remade it, but the ending kind of bummed them out? So this time, when Sebastian and Mia reunite at Seb's, she leaves her husband for him, and they get back together. Interested in taking a look at where Shaw's Pygmalion ends and My Fair Lady begins?
I said I'd make a woman, and succeed I did. 5 minutes ago you were a millstone round my neck, and now you're a tower of strength. I like you this way.
Goodbye, Professor Higgins. You shall not be seeing me again.
Mother!
What is it, Henry? What's happened?
She's gone.
Well, of course, dear. What did you expect?
That's it. Give or take a few lines, but there are 10 minutes left. The extension was lifted from the 1938 film, which Shaw actually screenwrote for. He didn't, however, approve of the leads winding up together in it. His colleagues basically snuck that one around him by implying so without additional dialogue. Eliza rides away with her superior suitor, Henry walks it off, and at home plays back a recording of her previous dialogue on his gramophone until ta-da! They all lived happily ever after. My Fair Lady only differs in that Henry's walk becomes the famous romantic ballad I've grown accustomed to her face.
I've grown accustomed to his face and dreams of gouging out his eyes.
I hate the song. Honestly, as long as we're reading it as a love song, it's not just that he understates his feelings. that could be cute. It's that the entire second verse is dedicated to how miserable he imagines her life will be without him and how much pleasure he takes in the thought. I mean, this is the last song, the note we're left on, the last we hear of either of their inner musings. I prefer, and I'd like to rally some commotion for Freddie's solo. He's the guy Eliza's thematically designed to end up with, and his little number is about failing to contain his excitement knowing they're in the same area code.
I have often walked down this street before, but the pavement always stayed beneath my feet before.
Sure, it's a little stalkery out of context, but I've grown accustomed to her face is cruel, with or without context. In fact, the more historical context I learn of this story's adaptational journey, the worse it seems. This because if they were going to keep up with the altered ending of 1938's Pygmalion, but had wiggle room there wasn't in 1938, why not seize the opportunity to redeem some of Henry's worst tendencies with his bookend song? You know, justify him being rewarded with Eliza's return by having him acknowledge fault in her departure? The track could sound the same, even be titled the same, but it would be framed in remorse. Gee, I sure do feel bad about all I've said and done. That is not how it sounds. I'll have you know, I've forgiven many a redeemed love interests, even other misogynists of the early 20th century. Jervis Pendleton III comes to mind from Daddy Longlegs, less so the book because we don't learn much of his perspective in it, and more so the musical, in which he spends the entire second half lyrically beating himself up.
I'm drowning in the waves of my deceit. I'm a beast. I'm a disappointment.
Now, I won't spoil Daddy Longlegs because I hope to casually mention it in enough videos to pique your interest. This is a recruitment tactic. You must love and adore it as I do. But I will say, its focal relationship represents an age gap like My Fair Lady's. The power amongst them is similarly imbalanced. All the difference lies in the self-reflection of the elder, or lack thereof. Of course, one could argue that dated fiction inevitably espouses dated ideals which don't mesh well with modern sensibilities. When I think of hugely problematic musicals, largely forgiven for being products of their time, I think of Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. My Fair Lady, though, is unique in being an adaptation of a play more progressive than itself. You know, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers is also a work of adaptation, ultimately derived from a Roman myth literally known as the abduction of the Sabine women. It didn't have much to live up to in terms of feminism, and it technically doesn't endorse kidnapping. It's like Beauty and the Beast in that way. He can't have her until he learns to let her go. That's how low of a bar I wish Professor Higgins cleared. Learning something. Anything. One could also argue guilt and growth to be out of Henry's character, and you know what? I agree. What can I say? You're so right. By design, he's permanently unapologetic.
I can't change my nature. I don't dare to change my manners. My manners are exactly the same as Colonel Pickering.
That's not true. He treats a flower girl as if she were a duchess.
Well, I treat a duchess as if she was a flower girl. The question is not whether I treat you rudely, whether you've ever heard me treat anyone else better.
He's as bad as one of those memes you'd only ever see on Facebook. Sorry, Meta. I don't care if you're black, white, straight, gay, fat, skinny, rich, or poor, because I hate everyone. Like, thanks, Professor. That's very helpful. The way I see it, there's no use in refraining from undermining his stubborn characterization when you're already undermining the meaning of that characterization by letting him win. Make I've grown accustomed to her face redemptive. Then again, you might consider this request moot because 1964 was not the last year which saw a Pygmalion-esque project, and considering all but like one of them since hasn't concluded with the creator and creation in a relationship, we know what more justified happy endings look like for them. One film that doesn't ultimately pair up Pygmalion and Galatea, by the way, is also the only other gender-swapped parallel I'm aware of, unless you count Pinocchio, and its Disney Channel original movie, How to Build a Better Boy.
I made you up. I invented the idea of you because I was hurt that a boy didn't want me. Initiate self-destruct.
Goodbye, May.
Look me in the eye and tell me that's not how Hatch should have ended. I should mention, before we dive into the she's and he's all that takes on Pygmalion, that I can't find substantial evidence to suggest the inspiration was intentional. I mean, Wikipedia calls Sat a modern adaptation of My Fair Lady, but its sources are reviews that simply draw a comparison. Roger Ebert's review drew the comparison. That just might be all it is. Which is fine, I'm fine with that. Analysis isn't chained to authorial intent after all, but it is slightly unfortunate how much learning I did about My Fair Lady and Pygmalion under the impression She's All That was literally a retelling of them. I'm still not entirely convinced it wasn't. In all of my Googling, I might not have stumbled upon the creators ever saying so, but everyone else does confidently. I was an infant then, but I presume the internet was less prevalent in the 90s. Perhaps Sat was heavily advertised as a modern My Fair Lady in the newspaper. Look, this one says She's All That spans generations in its appeal. Did y'all liberally interpret that one? What I did uncover in all of my research is that M. Night Shyamalan alleges he ghostwrote the screenplay. So that's fun. I, for one, would kill to know what a twist ending of Sat would look like. M. Night, if you're watching, please inform. Regardless, She's All That isn't of retelling caliber, in my opinion. He's All That is. For details, see my last video, but TLDR, from where I'm sitting, Sat is to My Fair Lady what Easy A is to the Scarlet Letter, while Hat is to Sat what Clueless is to Emma. Do we understand each other? Moving on, She's All That replaced economic class with senior class popularity to mixed effect.
A bet? Just name the terms.
All right, simple. I'll pick the girl. And you got 6 weeks to turn her into the prom queen.
It's all right, I guess. In wake of He's All That, I keep hearing it called a modern classic, a cult classic, or a teen classic, and I don't know about all that. Take my opinion with a grain of salt because I was a month old upon its release, but surely not every box office success qualifies a variety pack classic. I suppose it's not insignificant that it was parodied. Spoofs can only really target what is widely recognizable, but if Sat is a classic, I'd call it one of its time. After watching every other YouTube video about Hat, I can attest to very few other YouTubers having seen its predecessor. That's not a criticism, don't get me wrong. Feel free to judge a remake Boot Imagining by its own merits, but go see for yourself dozens of other commentators disclaiming that they've either never seen She's All That or only watched it in preparation for He's All That. Hat didn't do well because people care about the All That legacy. It did well because we care to make fun of Addison Rae, and I don't blame us. Sat isn't an easy movie to feel passionately about. It's competent, but its flaws are abundant. The cast was absolutely stacked, but given very little to do. It's quintessentially late 90s, but almost in a bad way. Technically, it did clear the bar I set for My Fair Lady in that Zach learns something. Good for him.
I'll bet you that you lose that bet, but in doing so, you learn a much more valuable lesson and win. In life, that is. You're both on.
What he learns specifically is to be less image conscious. I don't mean to contradict myself because I know I just talked your ear off about the unsuitability of Henry Higgins, but Zach's character flaws are kind of softball in comparison, right? I mean, if we're reading these two films as counterparts, and we are, even if they aren't explicitly connected because you've got to meet me where I'm at, falling down the rabbit hole, I find it equally annoying to thematically corrupt Pygmalion by changing its ending and by foregoing having a meaningful theme altogether. Perhaps it's unfair of me to compare She's All That to an undisputed classic that it might not have even been trying to replicate, but when you do view it through the lens of My Fair Lady, it comes out looking more vapid than it did before. Tell me, at their best, what's the point of stories like these? Supposedly ugly duckling transformations, makeovers aided and abetted by characters trying to fix the one being made over. Naturally, it depends. The morals of Mean Girls and Clueless, for instance, which are fixated on high school popularity like Sat, include don't change for the approval of others, and don't expect others to change for your approval. Pygmalion and My Fair Lady are instead deconstructions of class, which makes them more complicated, where Caddy's and Ty's transformations are reversible, Eliza's isn't. She's unrecognizable to those she once knew, and the moral isn't exactly that it was wrong of her to change, but that truly becoming ladylike will require her to demand to be treated like a lady.
Apart from the things one can pick up, the difference between a lady and a flower girl is not how she behaves, but how she is treated. I shall always be a flower girl to Professor Higgins because he always treats me as a flower girl and always will.
Ideally, She's All That's takeaway would have landed somewhere among the aforementioned. Anywhere. Personally, my imagination draws up a couple of perfectly heartwarming tales. One that says you shouldn't change for the approval of your crush, and another that's more about defining and examining high school popularity. Hell, Sat could have done all of that at once, but I don't think it did much of anything at all. It didn't deliver on the promise of its premise. Rewatch it if you don't believe me, but as it turns out, one of Not Another Teen Movie's few missteps in parodying Sat might have been implying Zach learned a valuable life lesson in it. Like I said, you can make a case for Lainey teaching Zach not to give a damn about his reputation. That's certainly going on. I can't take that away. But aside from light egocentrism, the guy's flawless by every metric. Lying is his only wrongdoing, and he doesn't make a habit of it, nor is it emblematic of a larger character flaw. You see, the big difference between the bet in Sat and My Fair Lady is that Eliza's in on it while Lainey isn't. You'd think a lie all the worse, and realistically it is, but consider how void of conflict She's All That would be without the addition of deceit. Lainey wouldn't have a third act reason to fall out with Zach. Eliza fights with Henry because he disrespects her and discredits her. The inclusion of a lie supplements the drama and stakes lost in correcting Professor Higgins. Zach is tangibly, faultlessly kind. His methods of popularizing Lainey include and are limited to hanging out with the girl. He's not even the one to make her over. His sister does it. Lainey never looks in the mirror and doesn't like who she sees, never neglects her loser bestie Michael in the bathroom style, and Zach never comes to regret anything other than his intentions. Maybe it's a virtue how shallow the conflict is. Sat is an easy, comfortable watch because it never inflicts secondhand embarrassment or guilt upon you. The characters make mistakes on paper, but you never feel as though they've done anything meaningfully wrong. There's something stress-free about that. No worries, just vibes. But I'm a stickler for theming. I can't get past the fact that She's All That's plot doesn't matter. It merely happens. Pygmalion learns to be honest, and Galatea learns to wear contacts. Sat took all of the bite out of My Fair Lady, which makes it all the more impressive that Hat managed to take the bite out of it. We'll get into it, but I'd like to stop before we do and point out that I don't like the picture this paints. By that I mean I don't like my ranking of these films and plays coming off as chronological. I don't want you to take away from this video that I think new retellings of old stories are doomed to be lesser. Shaw's Pygmalion certainly isn't worse than Ovid's, and who said I prefer Pygmalion to My Fair Lady? I prefer its ending, that's for sure, but My Fair Lady is a musical, which has both starred Julie Andrews and Audrey Hepburn. Do you know me at all? I think a sculptor falling in love with a sculpture is one of those concepts fascinating enough to justify however many interpolations, like Romeo and Juliet, Cinderella, Bring It On. In fact, my personal favorite version of Pygmalion came out in 2012, and it's Ruby Sparks. If you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend it, especially if you like Little Miss Sunshine, because the same duo directed it. It's another fantastical take in which an author, Calvin, writes about his dream woman, Ruby, and she appears in his kitchen. There's a twist in that he can continue writing about her to change her in real time, so it ends up a sort of deconstruction of the manic pixie dream girl, one of few actually written by a woman, mind you, and at the same time, a general exploration of the inevitable imperfection of romantic relationships.
Quirky, messy women whose problems only make them endearing are not real. Period. What do they say, right? What you've been through? I'm telling you, Calvin, the honeymoon shit, it doesn't last.
I know that.
Women are different up close.
Spoiler alert, It does share My Fair Lady's fatal flaw in my opinion, because its leads are also forced into a last-minute, presumably happy ending. After a distressing to witness scene in which Calvin fully puppeteers Ruby, he writes that the next time she leaves the house, she'll cease to be under his control. Much later in their time, but moments later in ours, he runs into her freed self and finds she doesn't remember him. This implies to me that they'll continue dating, except this time he won't make her up as he goes, which is all well and good, but like not exactly what I'd call a cure-all. Is there not something still immoral about pursuing a woman whose existence you conceived, especially when you know but she doesn't that that's the case? I suggest simply skipping the last couple of minutes. Skip the last couple of minutes of My Fair Lady too. It's like death of the author if it were murder of the author. Add my name to the credits, I edited your movie. Anyway, I bring Ruby Sparks to your attention because I want to, and because it proves there are fresh takes on this premise to be had. A deconstruction of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl wouldn't have made sense back when, but it totally made sense in 2012. As such, doesn't it stand to reason that in 2021, a gender-bent remake boot imagining of She's All That could have been something? I wouldn't venture to suggest He's All That was ever going to be an indie darling, but I do believe it could have been good. Addison Rae and all. What I've found most frustrating about the response to it, even though I'd call it deservingly poorly received, has been this, well, what did we expect attitude. I mean, I get it, because like you, I didn't expect better, but I do think we deserve better. Is it not an insult to teen rom-coms as a subgenre to suggest this is their average showing? Sat is your average teen rom-com. Hat is decidedly worse. Even if we're talking Netflix caliber teen rom-coms specifically, I'm old enough to remember the half of it, Dumplin', The First to All the Boys. It's not all the perfect dates, tall girls, and the kissing booths. This is the first time I feel like widespread disapproval was the intended reaction. Gee, if as many people hate watch this as anticipated, Addison Rae is gonna be set for life. Greenlight Tall Girl too, will ya? My letterboxd review says Netflix only ordered He's All That to be hate-watched into relevancy, and clearly I stand by that. Of course, a movie made is always an accomplishment. I don't think anybody, least of all Addison herself, rolled up to set thinking, let's make something bad today. But are you gonna look me in my eyes and tell me that I'm wrong? I said I hoped to better express my reasons for abandoning the old format someday, but I'll give you one now. It begins to feel, when you're forever covering the latest widely hated Netflix output, like you're giving them exactly what they want. I mean, whose fault is it that Tall Girl's getting a sequel? Whose fault is it that we'll likely never see a movie without Addison Rae in it again? We, the hate watchers. In some ways, it's a beautiful symbiotic relationship. Making fun of stuff is, you guessed it, fun, but less fun for me personally when it's expected of me. I don't like going into movies in bad faith, I guess, and this is the first time I've done so in a while. I didn't want to, nor think I would, enjoy Hat. I'd admit it if I were pleasantly surprised. I was not. It was just as I feared. The first thought I had when stills were released was that it looked like it was filmed in a model home. Nobody lives here. At least hang something on the fridge. And it's not just the set design that looks hollow, it's the lighting, wardrobe, and camera work, none of which are eyesore-ish, but all of which are boring. I've accused other Netflix teen rom-coms of looking the same, but then at least they have a look. This is what Lele Pons sketches would look like with a slight budget increase. I genuinely think He's All That resembles a commercial, fittingly as it is one. I'm talking celebrity cameo Super Bowl commercial. Brighten the lights, clean up the set, nobody in this universe has ever known pain. Obviously though, that's not what they were going for. These characters have known pain, it's just hard to feel for them when they express it, because this is literally an advertisement, and that's an insult to stylistic advertisements. The only segment that halfway evades that sterile, lifeless feel is the Great Gatsby themed party, because for a second, fun fits and colorful lights enter the chat. When I say Hat took the bite out of Sat, you might wonder what I mean, given I'm not big on She's All That, and it's true, I don't think He's All That managed to be more stupid or less meaningful, but it does lack a certain, like, pizzazz. oomph, charm, je ne sais quoi. Watch the two back to back, and Sat starts to look like a masterpiece. Wow, check out that camera movement. That's what I call acting. I sure hope some of this wardrobe is purchasable. Comedy gold, I tell you. I have never laughed this hard in my life. You know what? I'll show you my favorite scene.
Between two girls, which one we gonna pick? I'd rather pick Laney, cause Taylor be talking She thinks she's all of that, with everything in between. But who's about to be prom queen? Laney.
That's it. That just happens, and now we're into the thing. We don't see or hear from those guys again. Their rhythmic title drop appears for seemingly no other reason than that it's cool. It's fun to watch, fun to listen to. It serves no purpose besides establishing that Laney's prom campaign is picking up steam. Also, about an hour into Hat, something similar is attempted. Let's check it out, shall we?
Do you want to hear a poem? Sure. Cameron Queller, Interstellar, stood up to the dick, made it stick.
Well, that was disappointing. To be fair, I don't think they're trying to strike the exact same tone. We're not going for cool, we're going for comedic effect. The tricky thing about comedy, though, is that it's supposed to be funny. On the bright side, the scene really succeeds in putting you in Cameron's shoes, you know, because this is the face I make watching it. I guess what I'm getting at is that She's All That Is Lucky, He's All That came along to make it look good. I'm not even really kidding. Compare any of their one-to-one comparable scenes, Lord knows there are plenty to choose from. Hat is a weirdly, detrimentally loyal reinterpretation. Take my second favorite sequence in Sat, for example. Zach's first attempt at getting in with Laney is feigning interest in art. She is suspicious of his motivations, rightfully so as we know, and to test his limits, signs him up to perform at her extremely off-putting performance art show. To his surprise, mine and hers, improvised slam poetry hacky sack goes over well. More than that, Zach is legitimately jazzed about it. Guy loves performance art now, and this is the only turn of events that really sells me on their compatibility. I adore how unique of a romantic beat it is. In the midst of your run-of-the-mill love story, something truly strange. I also find Laney's performance to be the best case against the most popular criticism of She's All That, which is that it's hard to believe Rachel Lee Cook, even in overalls, is the loseriest loser of all. Fair enough, but in this moment, I buy into the idea that she weirds people out. I buy into the catharsis of a jock discovering interest in an arcane hobby that his social circle would likely bully him for having. Now, I'd argue He's All That replicates these scenes twice. Paget first feigns interest in Cameron's hobbies by throwing the old horse around with him, and later gets him on stage, though unlike Laney, unintentionally. Hat's karaoke pool party scene might be more comparable to Sat's beach volleyball scene because it's the first time Galatea is invited to hang out in Pygmalion's inner circle, but both similarities can be true. I think they included a new live-on-stage performance purposefully, except this time it's a bland cover of Teenage Dream, complete with a little TikTok dance. Others have pointed out before me that it's unfortunate they cast Myra Malloy, but made her pretend to suck at singing.
Know that you may be just a bit jealous of me.
You know, at least one of those rappers from She's All That was a working musician. This guy, Tack, but I guess they let him do his best because they weren't worried about him showing up another cast member trying to make it in the music industry. Okay, sorry, that's a little presumptuous. But it is what I think. I also think what bothers me about this version of events is that it focuses on Cameron going out of his comfort zone for Paget, where the original focused on Zach going out of his comfort zone for Laney. I'm generally bothered by Hat's use of point of view. Both movies might be told from dual perspectives, but both introduce us to the female lead first, while I think both should introduce us to Galatea first. He's All That should lean towards anchoring us in Cameron's world, but it's all about Paget all the time. Then I don't think my dislike of the horse poop scene requires elaboration, but I do want you to know I don't just find it gross. Rest assured I am grossed out by it, but I just find the entire inclusion of horses bewildering. Cameron is a photographer in the way that Lainey was an artist, which is to say in an obnoxious, fake deep way, but a passionate way nonetheless.
I read about this riot in Mogadishu. This represents the pain of that night.
Okay, come on, look, I mean, there's a perfectly untouched orange next to a discarded math textbook. I mean, it speaks volumes, right?
Does it? So why, on God's green earth, doesn't Paget feign interest in photography to get to know him? This might be a silly complaint because theoretically I do want multi-dimensional characters, but leave the horseback riding photographers to better screenwriters. Cameron Kurosawa Kung Fu Kubrick Queller has no business working at a horse stable.
Horses. I'm sorry? He loves horses.
Anyway, I hope I've proven that looking at She's and He's All That side by side doesn't bode well for the latter. But I did begin complaining about Hat by saying it could have been something or meant something. So I want to conclude this admittedly scattered video by letting you in on what I think its two biggest missed opportunities were. The first was failing to do anything interesting with the gender swap. Reverse heterosexuality was never going to be groundbreaking, but if you're going to play with gender, explore that, even shallowly. Earlier, I included a clip of Bo Burnham's Lower Your Expectations, which is a lighthearted comedy song about the unrealistic expectations men and women have for each other. If they wanted to get deeper with it, there's actually a lot of TikTok discourse going on right now about the discrepancy between what men think women want and what we actually do. The terms male and female gaze are sort of wearing on me, but there could be something there. I don't know, it just seems like He's All That wouldn't exist if it weren't for the appeal of that pronoun switcheroo, and they might as well have made use of it. The second missed opportunity, I think, was failing to modernize She's All That effectively. As covered, Pygmalion-like stories are tales as old as time, and it's actually so neat to see how different generations rework classic tropes like these. Unfortunately, He's All That was written by the same guy who wrote its predecessor, who was only about a decade out of high school in 1999, but who's in his 50s now. I'm not particularly fond of arguing that older people shouldn't be writing stories about the youth of today. I think it's absolutely possible that it could be done well. But why isn't it ever? Let me know if you can think of an exception to that rule, because I want to, but I can't. It's especially frustrating these days because you don't even have to sit in at your local high school to observe the trends, slang, and behavior. Hop on social media, it's all there. Speaking of social media, when I say Hat failed to modernize Sat, I mean a multitude of things, but I'm mainly referring to its lackluster depiction of social media, which is alarming because social media is worked into the theme, exactly how you'd imagine it would be worked into the theme by somebody in their 50s.
If you put your TikToks down, you have a chance to see some people dancing in real life.
Look, I know I've lightheartedly jabbed at Addison Rae throughout this video, but I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that that girl knows the life of a social media influencer. She might be on a different side of the internet than me. She might have millions more followers than me, but some things are universal, and I don't believe for a second that she was consulted about her expertise in this field. Despite Paget's entire character clearly being modeled after her, they did not encourage her to give them notes, because this is ridiculous. I don't particularly want to accuse He's All That of being unrealistic, because that would be very 2 years ago of me, but the very fabric of their understanding of the world is broken if they think a teenage beauty guru might be cancelled for getting cheated on. That's not what bothers me most, though. What bothers me most is that whether or not social media was portrayed accurately, it wasn't, given that one of the main characters is an influencer and her motivation for popularizing Cameron is earning back her followers. The bet should have centered around her getting him followers. Why are we sticking to the prom thing? How does some dude without a social media presence winning prom king fix her follower count. I find Hat routinely confuses high school popularity and literal fame. The two can be linked, I'm sure. I mean, nobody at my school cared that I had a Teen Wolf reaction video hit 20,000 views, but that's not everyone's experience. High schoolers do, in some ways, gauge their social status through social media stats, but it appears fame is popularity at this school. When in California, I guess. Maybe that's the culture over there. But I think it's more likely he's all that didn't portray something accurately. Anyway, I suck at concluding videos. I just reach a point when I said all the things I want to say. You heard them. I'll leave you with my 2 favorite things about Hat. There's a song on the soundtrack I dig, and go lesbians go.